Hello, today on Mental Health Discovery and Recovery, I'm reintroducing a guest I love to work with. We met writing for dailyohm.com, and he's a course creator there. He also has an MBA, and he's a yoga instructor certified in many ways, but also talks about money. Edward Vilga, we are so glad to have you here. And today we're going to be talking about the Science of Getting Rich journal. I've read it, it's great. I'm going to be working on it myself. And I hope it helps inspire other people. This isn't about just to get rich. It's so much more than just getting rich. It's getting comprehensive wellness and wealth too. So go ahead, Edward. Tell us about your book, how you got inspired, and what it entails.
Well, thank you. First, thank you for having me, and thank you for being part of one of the early readers of the Science of Getting Rich journal. Um, this is an exciting new book for me. I've written a lot about mindset and a lot about prosperity thinking and a lot about having a fully abundant life in every way. We know each other, as you said, through the Daily Ohm, and I have a very successful course there called A Year to Get Rich with Purpose, which has all those ideas. So I've been
I took
around.
it
Oh, you did. That's right.
years
That might be
ago,
how we know.
years
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ago.
yeah. And it's this book grew out of several things, but one, it is the original source book, which has been so instrumental in so many mindset people's journey. It's from 1911, The Science of Getting Rich, and what I did is I created a journal around that. So it's the entire original book plus summaries and exercises, but really 40 days of structured journaling prompts. And that comes from a lot of what I learned with working with the Daily Ohm with students online is the power of the daily journaling practice and working with these ideas on that level.
And 40 days is there's a boy, we could go in a whole podcast about the 40 day. And how did you figure the 40 day, or how did it find you? How did this entire book find you from Wallace Wattles, and how did you adapt and interpret? Because it really this is a great journal. This isn't just some fill in the blank thing. These are pertinent questions to your individual life. Whoever's listening, it's your individual life, and you can answer questions.
Well, the 40-day thing I can answer easily is that I had to pick a number and we didn't want it to be, and there's different studies about how long it takes to imprint a habit or change a way of thinking. And there's no definitive answer for that. Sometimes people, as you know, can have a mindset shift semi instantly and everything changes, and other times it's longer. But 40 seemed, in so many spiritual traditions, from Christianity to Judaism to yoga, to be a good solid number to work with, and also just doable in a book format, so that there's 40 days and two prompts per day. So two very specific things, because I think a lot of people, um, if you just give them here's a book of about mindset, and then here's a blank book, write something, you feel stranded. So I
Yes.
wanted to give people a guided experience of let's go through these prompts and have this, um, like a course almost, but with complete flexibility and complete freedom, but with structure so that you could really, really go deep.
Yes, I love that you incorporated the book and then the prompts. And then you even, for those people who are really, really busy, you're going to love that it's called The Science of Getting Rich Journal again. And if you want it, and it's not, it's structured in a way that's succinct. You have a gift for that, Edward, is making things very
Thank you.
succinct and expedient, but not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's expedient and simple,
Well,
but it's
yeah.
not easy to answer these questions, is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that, and that is my goal, because I think truth is both very deep and very simple, and the initial original text is that it is relatively short, it is very simple, and sometimes you can kind of read it and gloss over it, but that is what I think the most powerful, truthful things are, and
Mm.
you have to go deep with them and explore them. So I put in short chapter summaries, of bullet points, because we were talking before. Like I love bullet points. I
I
just
love
like,
them.
I love them. I love them. I want the core nugget of truth. And I think that just in anyone's journey, for learning, you want that. You want like a lecture, but you also want the bullet points and you want the thing to practice. So that's why I felt this was of great value. Because for, I have like with Daily Ohm over 100,000 students in various online things, and I'm not there with them. So I see how powerful it is though to give them writing exercises because then you can apply it to yourself. You can make it
Yes.
work for you. I mean, I can give you lots of examples of something, but it really only has true power when you apply it to your own life.
Yes, the individualization. That's what I love. It's not a one size fits all. And as people know, I'm a mental health counselor. I know some counselors use one size fits all treatments for certain things. I don't. I can. I mean, I'm trained to do it, but I think it's more about collaborating with the client, which brings me to another question about this. Like you and I work for the same company, but we're on different platforms. We're not competing, we're
Hmm.
collaborating right now. This book and your journal prompts, especially on competition versus a creative plane, can you explain why creativity is so important? And your creativity, as was mine, was born of adversity. So
Yeah.
you know from whence you speak. So can you speak to the people that are like that dog eat dog kind of mentality? Because it's really not that.
Well, this is an idea that is deeply rooted in the original text, which is partly why I respond to it, which is that Wallace Wattles, when he wrote the book in 1910 and it was published in 1911, really talked about that we want to be, he talks about very specifically the creative versus the competitive mindset. And there's a deep philosophical level of truth to that. But essentially, to just summarize, it's that when you start thinking from this point of competition and scarcity, you are limiting options and you are seeing in some ways inaccurately. When you are connected to this universal energy, this sense of vision, you realize that you can be creative and that runs throughout the book and is just a really strong theme. And it's so easy to get trapped into a competitive mindset. But and I see why, with anyone, it's easy to think that's what's necessary. But his point is that only gets you so far. It's very limited and it's not a route to happiness.
Oh no, not at all. In fact, it makes you less socializing with other people or less socialized to other people. We noticed that during COVID, people were shut down and locked down and people got angrier and oh, we're just now seeing people coming out of that kind of mentality, that scarcity mentality. And the root word of scarcity is scared. So this journal
Yeah.
takes all the fear out of things for people. And also, I love visualization, as do you. And how does visualization play a role in this journal? Because I want to pause and say there's a QR code inside each time of each day of the journal, and you can log on to it and get Edward's meditations with music. They're beautiful. So, explain how visualization is important and how it can go awry too. It's a twofold thing.
Well, there are a couple of things there. And yes, there are you can it's the website is it was too long, the science of getting rich too long, sgrjournal.com. But on the website and the QR codes in the books, there are five unique meditations that I've done for these key concepts, and one of them is for visualization. So that is just a guided and visualization. And one thing that I've done with all my meditations, with all like 100,000 students and course stuff, is that I've made them short with the option to go deeper. So, you don't always have time for a 20-minute meditation. I know that's sort of like a gold standard that's not official. So I make them 5 to 7 minutes, so that you can just check in, and then I have extra music. So if you do have the 20 minutes and you want to sit there and visualize more, great. But the 5 to 7 minute check-in visualization meditation moment is there. So there's one for gratitude, there's one for taking action, there's one for purpose and having faith, and there's one for visualization. So the visualization one is very, very, very science-backed. There's also that on the website as well, that it's not just, new age fantasy, that if you imagine something,
It will
it's magically
happen.
going to pop in. No, no, there's so many. I taught a little mini course about this, which had all these. There's so many studies of the visualization, how it affects the brain, how it improves performance. There are studies with Olympic athletes. There are studies with surgeons, who are
Yes.
more effective and efficient, who visualize the operation. So there's so much proof. In a non-woo-woo way, that visualizing improves things on lots of different levels, on the most practical performance level. And for those of us who are more inclined to believe in, the mystical and the metaphysical and esoteric, that it shifts you so that you are more ready to receive. And there is the only potential downside, and the book is really clear about that, and I try and be clear about it as well, is that it's not saying all you need to do is visualize. So
Exactly.
every now and then something happens like that.
It
I
does.
thought about
But
this, but yeah, every now and then. But that's why another one of the most popular meditations is the action one, is taking that aligned action. But visualization is one of the key steps and one of the very first steps because people are on all different spectrums with it. There are some people who are great and have a clear vision, and there are some people who really, as you know, need to. That is a skill to develop, to really
yes.
define and see what they want.
Yes, it's mental rehearsal. And I
Hmm.
always say the law of attraction requires action. I tell people if you sit
Hmm.
around and imagine you're a brain surgeon, you better be looking for a medical school. Like you didn't
Yeah.
get your MBA by imagining you had one. You thought
Yeah.
about your thought started, and then you went out and got one. You got an
Yeah.
executive. You had to go get that.
I had to
Yes.
take tests and do things and
Yes.
so it's but the visualization was important
It's very
because
important.
because there are people I know who would be like, well, I could never do that. They can't see themselves doing something,
Right.
or or they're holding themselves back in some way. So we're on the exact same page as is Wallace Wattles. The visualization is essential, but there is an action component involved.
Yeah, and it is. I love it. I was just about to say that word. It's a component. And visualization is a good starting ground too. And your meditations, we think alike there. My meditations on the book I've written are all short because
Yeah.
you wrote things like my favorite yoga for people who can't touch their toes. And is it
Yeah, that's another
meditations for
core.
people who can't sit still? Is that the title of that?
Yeah, yeah, you got them both right,
Okay,
because
great. I did.
yeah, because I was for a while teaching yoga much more actively. It was my own like physical and spiritual practice, and I began teaching it almost accidentally. But I realized very quickly that there was a market for, yes, I was teaching an advanced class in New York City of like hyper athletes, but there's a huge audience out there who cannot touch their toes, who cannot do any of the fancy calendar poses. And the same thing with meditation. Like, there's lots of 20-minute meditations, but not everybody can sit still that long.
No, and 5 minutes is a place to start. And then I notice that when people do it, I call it like brain rehearsal. They start craving more. They don't
Yeah.
try to do it more. Like Alan Watts said, he said, I tell people not to try, and then they try really hard not to try.
Right.
So
Right.
this is an answer for that. And I want to address the mental health issues because that's what this podcast is about. People that I see often, and it's sad to hear it because I think some of it comes from our puritanical American way of looking at things, and other countries in the world have those same things. A lot of people's relationship with money is
Mm.
is anger, or they've been
Mm.
controlled with it, or they say, I hate rich people. And I always like, well, rich people give other people jobs.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
may not like the way they act, but that's the exact person who can pay you something, or an organization or a corporation, or find it yourself. But it always amazes me that there's something going on that's a barrier to many people
Hmm.
who just say, oh, money's the root of all evil, which is a principle from one religion, but also that money money doesn't mean anything to me. Money is a tool.
Hmm.
I mean, it's even in the Bible, it says money answers all things. It doesn't say people,
Hmm.
things. Like if you need a doctor,
Hmm.
you need money. So discuss. that relationship between mental health, emotions, and money, and how we can break those barriers for people to come out of that mentality of, the poverty mentality.
Well, it's such a loaded field. It's such a full of landmines with emotions because I think really nothing with the possibility of sexuality is as charged a universe as money. And I think, and in some ways, I think money is almost more charged because there are so many people who will tell you anything about their sex life, but will not discuss their finances,
Yeah.
and so there's huge taboos about it. And yeah, there's some common sense things like you might not need to Xerox your tax return for everyone you meet, but I know so many people who are so free and easy about everything else, but have reserved it. And there's all these as you said, there's all these emotions around it because there's anger, there's resentment, there's fear, there's scarcity, there's envy, there's overwhelm, there's feeling powerless. It's money is a tool, as you say, but it is a tool for all those emotions, for you to feel
Yes.
any of them that you want. Money is a great tool for control dynamics,
Hmm.
for controlling other people and for being controlled. It is so flexible in terms of what you can do with it. So you can use it to feel empowered or grateful, and you can use it to feel powerless and pathetic if you want. So
Yeah.
part of the reason why I was so attracted to doing this as a journal is that if you decide for 40 days, 2 prompts a day, you're going to write out answers to prompts. You're going to have the opportunity to actually look at your thinking. Because I think the first step in any of this is awareness. And it's so easy to be like, oh, I know all that, I'm aware. But you probably don't. Um, Especially if things aren't the way you want them to be, there's
Exactly.
something there.
Some barrier. There's a
There's
barrier.
some barrier. And so the first step, and this is the first step in any of my courses, or I'm sure it's the first step in almost every therapy practice, I would imagine, is gaining awareness.
Yes, I always say, I tell people I'm here to help you listen to yourself and make you conscious of your subconscious, which is exactly what this journal does.
Yeah.
There is a lot of fear with money. And you mentioned that it starts with thinking. And in nearly every faith, I can't think of any ones that don't. Maybe you can, but thoughts are things. That's also cognitive
Hmm.
behavioral therapy. What you think changes your behavior. It puts that reticular
Hmm.
activation system, like you're selectively, your brain will lead you to what you want if you start visualizing and taking action. So if you could
Hmm.
discuss how gratitude, it plays a huge part in your journal, but gratitude changes lives. It's reframing. I use it for reframing, but how do you
Hmm.
use it for money issues?
Well, in the book and on the website, there is a gratitude meditation to get you plugged into that. But it is one of the central core tenets of the Science of Getting Rich journal, and the original book. In fact, it's the last word in the book, quite literally. And he feels, and I'm echoing his work, that it's the sort of foundational state for which you can begin to get rich, and that it's sort of it's not like it's a mental trick to feel better, although that will help. It's when you are feeling grateful, you have put yourself in a state of alignment. And from that state, you can then take action, you can then visualize, you can then plug into guidance, you can do all of that. So gratitude is sort of like start here, G for
Yes.
gratitude, G for go. It's like start
Yes.
here. And the good thing is that you can with especially with training live in that state more and get back into that state more. And so I have the short gratitude meditation. There are lots of exercises about gratitude and gratitude awareness, but I would just sort of say it is in Wattles' book, and in my work with it, absolutely central. And it's also easy, I would say this as well, to be dismissive of gratitude because it's often hyped up like I'm going to keep a gratitude journal, and so
Yes.
you can do certain gratitude practices have not worked for me. They may work for other people. Like just listing things I'm grateful for doesn't shift my mood, doesn't
Right.
tend to. It can, if I do a lot, or going deeper tends to, like really appreciating something or finding
Yes.
something. There's a lot of ways you can practice gratitude, but what I also want to bring it back, because I love that the original book in 1911 is called The Science of Getting Rich. And he means, it on multiple ways, but there is science behind all of his concepts. So there's a lot of science, and I have some of this on the website, of gratitude. Like there are tons of studies that show a few things. Like one, not only does it, help your mindset, it helps your entire physiology.
Oh,
It
yes.
helps you in every way. It's not just, it's nice to feel grateful. It's deeply, powerfully affecting you on all levels. So that's a really important part. And there's also science behind the fact that gratitude is something that you can practice and develop. And that there's studies with people in gratitude journals, there's studies with people recovering faster from heart operations,
Yes.
and I indicate some of those because I like that. I like the science facts just being
I
like,
do too.
okay,
The
I'm not
science.
just imagining all of this and it's, whatever. Like there's real science that you should be grateful and it's going to help you. And there's just a spiritual truth that this is the starting point. Start with gratitude.
Yes, it is. And if you don't mind, I'll do a simple, I want to like show the science behind it. It'll take
Yeah, yeah,
a minute.
please.
Because your journal covers the same thing when you ask personal questions. I tell
Yeah.
people we're going to activate or stimulate your vagus nerve with this exercise.
Hmm.
And you're a yoga instructor, so your vagus nerve is the reactant. We all know what fear, what fight, flight, frozen is, but we don't really know the reactivity of that parasympathetic nervous system, that vagus nerve. It runs from your brain all the way down through your torso. It hits where the
Hmm.
chakras do, like you said, science or faith. It's all the points of it, hits your vital organs. And so, your lungs, your chest, your heart, all of those things. So I tell people, you're walking outside, it's raining, you're late for work, and you have a flat tire. Where do you feel that in your body? And somebody listening might feel, oh, I feel my chest or I feel it on my stomach. Then they go, okay, let's apply gratitude. It's raining, you're late for work, you have a flat tire, and you go, oh, thank goodness this didn't happen to me on I-15 going 80 miles an
Hmm.
hour. And all of a sudden, the vagus nerve lets loose. This is just you probably felt it too. People feel it
Hmm.
immediately. That's why gratitude's not a joke. It actually rewires your brain
Right.
to
Right.
reframe something that's adverse and having a conversation with yourself and making it work. So, talk about people that have these negative thoughts or negative stigmas about money. Talk to that person and not to convince them so much, but to talk to them about how to release that stigma they may have learned by religion, by family, by poverty, which I said earlier is its own trauma. So,
Hmm.
how can you help people release their mindset to go, this isn't just junk, there's real brain neuroscience here?
Well, for one thing, and I think this tends to be helpful, is I always say to people that you are not alone. You are not, most people, are not, I have many statistics. This is not one of them, but most people, are not happy with their financial life for the most part. There's all sorts of studies about, where people are living and feeling, but, so you're not alone. And you're not alone in whatever block you have. And I think it helps to know that a lot of it is not your fault. A lot of it is society and also how you grew up. People doing the best they can, but also, the parents or grandparents who went through the depression, like people who went through terrible things or what they saw. So starting out, you're not alone. It's not your fault, but you can do something about it. So I have a fun way to start, which is that on the website there's a quiz for what's your money block, and so there are 7 different money blocks. I mean, there's probably more, but I sort of distilled it down to 7 archetypes. And you can just take a quiz. It takes 3 minutes, and it will give you something to play with and work with and maybe grow from. Like, what is your money block? Is it scarcity thinking? Is it that you're not dreaming enough? Is it all related to the concepts of this book? And then there are some suggestions for each one of them. So realizing you're not alone, it's not your fault, and you can work with them. You can be like, okay, it is this kind of thinking, so how do I shift this? I've found several different pathways to do that.
Oh, could you share one of them with us? Like one of the
Yeah,
pathways
yeah.
to it?
Let's one of them we've been talking about might be sort of scarcity thinking.
Hmm.
There's not enough, and that's very, very, very common. And it's hard not to be exposed to that. Just turning on the news and hearing about inflation or prices and this. And that. So scarcity thinking, and many of us, I would put myself in this camp, grew up with people telling you money doesn't grow on trees, there's not enough, and all of that. And there are facts in there that are true,
Hmm.
but you want to search. So I believe that the in the when you take the quiz, scarcity might be your block. Then the answer to that actually is gratitude. It is a gratitude practice. So you can begin to counteract scarcity through gratitude. And there's lots of ways to do that. There's the meditation. There's several practical suggestions. One of my favorite, and had a little video about this somewhere, is one thing that really helped me was an exercise that maybe other people have done it, but I think I invented this, which is called more than enough. And it started when this is a long time ago, like 15 or 20 years ago, when I had a different dog. I had a chocolate lab named Belle, and it was a crisis moment. Nothing was going right. The balances were negative and all the account. Like it was not great.
You've
But
been through this. You're
I've been
teaching what
through
you
it.
know.
I've really lived it. And the thing that was the turnaround point was I realized that I had a huge bag of food for my dog. There was more than enough food for her for a month. And so I just said, I'm just gonna plug into that. There's more than enough.
Yes.
And then I began as a practice every day writing lists of things that I had more than enough of. And
Beautiful.
there were so many, and some of them were really silly. Like I have more than enough hangers in my closet for clothes. I have more than enough socks. I have more than enough. We all do more than enough entertainment. Like I have Spotify. I have
Yes.
more than enough music to listen to, more than enough movies to see. And I began, to do this practice every day of writing down more than enough and feeling that to rewire my brain from there's not enough, we're in crisis to there's more than enough this, there's more than enough that. And it really allowed me to make that shift. So
It
that's
sort of
just
was
one
a
of them.
key that unlocked a door for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, because a
yeah,
lot of people will say, "I'm not enough," and if you start
yeah,
looking at what you are in every area of their life, that's a beautiful key that unlocks a lot of doors for people. Because there is
yeah,
physiology, which is psychology and biology put together. Uh, I don't think people realize, like even our stock market, for people that don't invest. The money and emotions, there's a greed and a fear index. That's
yeah,
actually how the stock market has a little needle every day. Is it
yeah.
running off of greed or fear? And I love what Warren Buffett said. He goes, be fearful when people are greedy and greedy when people are fearful. That's how he made so much money.
Right.
He was just saying when people are fearful, it's a good time to invest because everybody sells everything and gets all scared, scarcity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when
And
people
yeah.
are greedy, just sit back because they're paying way too much for something that's not of high value. So if you can apply that to your life, you have a greed or a fear index. Sometimes if you look at it, because money and emotions is so tied into each other. And the way you expedite these prompts is amazing because they're, like you said, they're short, but you're digging deep in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
really makes you think because really thoughts really are things. And I'll send clients sometimes to get a business card. If they say, I can't do that, I don't have enough money to start a business, I don't have a degree, I'll go, well, go make a business card. It's like, what, $10 to get 100 cards on some websites. And I'll say, make a business card with your name on it. I put that reticular formation. And those,
Mm,
I hear back from so many people. I did start my own business. You were right. I found an investor or someone believed in me because just to have a tangible talisman to hold on to of a dream. So what would you use to tell people to be tangible? Like I tell people, if you think you can't afford a car, go to the dealerships anyway, because your
right,
brain will
right,
find a way. Reticular activation. Your brain, if you
right.
go look, your brain will find a way. So
Yeah.
what do you tell people to do that when you do personal coaching? Because I know you do.
Yeah, I mean, I love those examples, and I do similar things like that, and I think those are such great classic examples. I mean, it's combining these principles of the visualization and the action that we're talking about of those in this really perfect way, and the science of the reticular activation system. So, I've done things like I've done a lot of coaching clients because I've written so many things, and I've mostly coached people on creative projects. So it will be actually interesting exercise. Write, your ideal Amazon review, and it's actually helpful on a practical level because it helps them with purpose and like this is what I want the book to do for people in the world. Like this is what I'm trying to create. And it allows them to imagine it being complete so that that can happen. And it has this element of visualization to it. So that is one of them is like the work that you're working on or that you want to work on or that you're stuck. Write the ideal review that you want to see. Jump
Perfect
to the
world.
end of the finish line. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really about, how can you move to that version of the desired reality now, with enough detachment, but also enough passion that it has real power. Like whatever you think you want that thing to give you,
Mhm.
can you begin to experience it in this moment? And the answer is you can, but you have to do a little bit of work.
Yeah, and if you can visualize and be grateful and feel the energy of it too,
Right.
like we just did the exercise with the vagus nerve, and it's VAGUS if anybody's looking that up, because
Yeah.
yoga, which is Edward's specialty as well, it that yoga does help
Yeah.
release your vagus nerve and calm it down, so you're more proactive instead of reactive. So, I wanted to go through something. You're opening a platform. It's not quite launched
Hmm.
yet, but it's a beautiful platform. It's called Be Well.
Hmm.
How are health and wealth related? Because it's not just mental health and wealth. There's our depression, the people in the back, way in our, and I was actually raised by that generation, but they'll say, if you have your health, you have everything. There's some truth to that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Yeah.
can you talk about wellness and health and how it relates to financial wellness as well? There is a correlation there.
Well, there are a lot of correlations there. So the science of getting rich itself is the book is mostly focused on money, but it also is not. It's more about, it has elements of the full life, the satisfied life. And he's talking specifically about money towards that. And with other projects, I sort of came into money second in terms of, what I was teaching, because it's the wellness aspect, the spiritual, mental, physical aspect of it is where I started. And I realized that there was often a neglect of the money part of it. Like we're gonna drive the car without a wheel missing. Like it would be like mind, body, health. But you kind of also need money, to
Yes.
function in the world. Unless you're in some odd, commune setting. But
Yes,
even
you need
they
money
have
to buy
to.
good food, healthy food.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or they need to pay taxes on the, like,
exactly.
so I feel that there's a more natural integration than many people see. And that many parts of it, for example, on the most simplistic practical level, health requires some money. It requires checkups and doctors and good food and all of that. I mean, you don't need to spend, it is not money driven, but it is really hard. And there's endless statistics. It is really, really hard for most people to maintain their optimal health without adequate money.
Exactly. Oh,
You
truly.
know,
That's very true.
especially if something goes wrong. So there's
Yes.
that fundamental connection there. And then there's also all of the mental spiritual stress, which is money is often the primary cause of divorce, money arguments. Money is there's so many studies about how financial stress is so incapacitating to people, and that unless the money situation is handled, it's very hard to be serene.
Oh, almost impossible. I work with a lot of codependency and narcissistic abuse survivors, even sociopathic abuse survivors in the world. There's a lot of that, and they don't realize that money is a component. Sometimes, in fact, the first publisher, I had to do something just like you would do. You would tell me to do it. The first
Yeah.
publisher I worked with wanted me to take out the entire financial chapter on codependency.
Oh,
I said no, because 99.9% of all people who stay in bad relationships, it's usually because they don't have the money to get out, or the
yeah.
person is abusing their money and they can't get out. Something has happened financially. And I said, no, in fact, can we just break the contract? And he said, yes. So, and then I found a publisher who let me flourish
Right.
with that. So, can you talk to that part about why it's, and I do the writing things down in meditation. So, why is the mental act of meditation, which we've talked about, so important in tandem with writing it down? Because people just go,
Mhm.
I don't want to journal, I don't want to write it down. Again, how is that physiologically powerful?
Um, it really is. It's a really good question because you there is people might have resistance to various parts of any spiritual well-being practice. Some people may have no resistance, but it's easy to be like, I'm not a person who can meditate, or I'm not a journal person. And so I've tried to make it all as accessible as possible. So you have in this a book, and you can read the book, and you can outline, and you can do that. And you have guided meditations, and you can go deep into that. And with journaling, I think the block people tend to have, or the resistance is, well, what good is writing about it going to do? And I think there's plenty of proof of what it can do. So one thing, just as we talked about before, is that it can help you uncover things you might not be aware of. That is very powerful. The writing does a lot physiologically. It slows you down. It's not just a endless, fast-moving stream of thoughts. You have to go a little slower. There is something about, and there are many studies about this, the physical process of writing the words. You can, there's a Kindle ebook, you can type it, but I think the more natural format is to actually write by hand, but you can
Yes.
do it either way. But there's a lot of science about how slowing down, focusing, and there's a kind of intensity to the writing. So not just like, you know, writing an affirmation 1,000 times, which I've never succeeded getting my results from that. But I have with discovering new things in the process, uncovering things, making decisions. And then sometimes, yeah, sometimes then when I write something down is a powerful statement, it has real weight. So
It
that's what
does.
I have personally found.
Yeah, it slows your brain down and helps you really. What I'm so glad you said that it slows you down so that you can work yourself up to knowing what you really want. Because sometimes people are just so focused on what they don't have and what they don't want. I mean, just the fact that you can breathe and walk and talk
Hmm.
sometimes is where people they just start wherever you are. Whoever's listening, start wherever you are. And Edward, how can people get in touch with you if they need your help to start wherever they are? Because I know you do personal coaching,
I
and
do.
yes,
I do. Well, there's two main websites and they're kind of linked, but for the journal, it's the SGR Journal, this SGR Science of Getting Rich Journal.com. And it links to my other website, which is just my name, edwardvilga.com, so that you can find out about me. And oh, an interesting thing, I should have mentioned this earlier, is that we just launched this on the website. So this is another way to get in touch with me, which is, very sci-fi, which is we now have and a couple of people are doing this, but we're really, on the trend of it. You can now ask a trained AI questions about the journal, and which is like asking me because it has in the database the entire book and the journal and all the prompts, and it has like 500 pages of my other writing.
Wow.
So you're kind of you're it's a little weird when I ask it questions like and it's very true. So it's not gonna if you say like should I invest in crypto or stocks, it's gonna say this is not the forum for that. But if you ask other questions about the spiritual journey, the mind-body journey, the wellness journey, you will get an answer from not just AI, but AI based on this book and based on my 500 pages of other writing. So that is a way you can easily be, and it's free right now, and
Oh, that's
it
fabulous. Yeah.
yeah, it has conversational memory so that if it you can ask questions and follow up so it knows, that it doesn't remember you long term, but it remembers you within a longer conversation. So you can get in touch with me like, on an AI level on the SGR website. Call it, Ask the Journal.
And people, do you still do personal one-on-one coaching? You have, I know
I
you're
do, I do. It's more
limited.
limited, but I do, and reach
Yes.
out, and if it's a match, that's great. You can find that on
Yes.
edwardvilga.com. I do because I like doing that. I get a lot out of that. And what I like about the coaching is that it's going deep with someone, and it's more limited. But what I like about again, the journal or the AI is that you're going deep with you. You
Yes.
can have an intense experience, sustained and going deep, so I recommend it for everybody.
And I bet you learn from your clients too. Is there something
Oh,
profound you've learned from clients that helped you think that this journal would be helpful for everyone? Because really, clients teach us so much. I don't think they realize how much they teach us. Even if we say they do, they think "Wait, you're just saying that." No, no, really, we don't say that often. They teach us a lot. Yeah.
oh, no, they absolutely do. I mean, many, 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 many things. I mean, one thing is I tend to see this just popped into my head. I tend to see people kind of underestimating themselves,
Yes.
whether that manifests as undercharging or thinking something amazing they can do or unique or even just relatively unique or that they're really good at, they dismiss because it comes so easily to them. So I think that's one side of it. And I think the other side of it can be people feeling, and that's partly why I did the project this way, can feeling like they're alone, that this is some unique problem, that everything is so curated on Instagram and you're the only person whose life isn't quite magically working out. And so that there is the sense that you can go deeper and that you're not alone and that there are solutions that you can have. There's not just one money block, there's a whole bunch. And then there's people who have overcome them and so can you.
And they're it's like Dorothy with the ruby slippers.
Yeah.
They had it all along. They just didn't know it. They
Yeah.
needed someone to guide them to show them it's right there at your feet. So
Yeah.
you don't
No,
need the wizard
it's
to do that. The wizard will lead you in the wrong direction and make you get in trouble. And they'll send monkeys. So I really appreciate this today. And for those of you who don't know Edward, I usually, we all get emails, but every Sunday he sends
Mm.
the most creative, humorous, deep, and thought-provoking newsletters. If you want the
Mm.
best newsletter ever, every
Oh,
Sunday I look forward to those and your meditations. I do. I
thank
took that
you.
course years ago before I ever met you. And I said, oh, these newsletters that came with it are just fabulous because they're
Uh,
fun and you love your dog. And I love
yeah,
how you incorporate personal things and creativity. So I hope people can find you that way too. I do
thank
because
you.
you unlock a lot of keys for me too and get me thinking. And so I wish you well, whoever's listening. Edward, I wish you well in your work and with this journal, the Science of Getting Rich journal. And it's so much more about than about being rich. It's about having an abundant life, which is so much more.
Hmm.
Any last words?
No, just you're so great, and thank you so much for this. And I am delighted to be talking to you. And you are absolutely right. It really is about having the fullest life, the truest sense of the science of getting rich.
Yes. Thank you so much.